What's going on, Failroaders? I'm Joshua Thomas, and I'm back to talk about some more Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. And this time, we're talking about, of course, the possibilities that we could have with the Highwind. Oh, it's going to be so great. And then the devs have assured us that we're going to be amazed at what we're able to do. This could very well be the first time since Final Fantasy IX that we have a traditional airship travel over a world map. I mean, that in and of itself is going to be incredible. But I've also written down a few more things that I believe we are absolutely going to have, and then a few things that I'm hopeful of, and things that I think could be possible. So let's get started with it. First off, it was absolutely glorious to see the Highwind in full HD, just docked at Junon Airstrip, waiting for the right crew to come along and apprehend her. Oh man, when I first saw the Highwind in FF7 Rebirth, did I say Remake the first time? I meant Rebirth. When I first saw it, it was just a nostalgia trip, and then being able to stand under it and see its full size was just incredible. And I can't wait to see that thing move. Move from its moorings or its dock, whatever you want to call it. And of course, I think the number one thing everyone is going to be expecting for the Highwind in Remake Part 3 is going to be some kind of Highwind combat. Now, this could be combat that directly involves the Highwind. Maybe the Highwind is going to have weapons this time. It didn't in the original game, but hey, that could change. After all, we did see a whole lot of other airships also docked at Junon, some of them looking like brand new models that we've never seen before, and looking like they were absolutely ready for a dogfight. So could we see ourselves controlling the Highwind in aerial combat? It's very possible. Now, how that will work, will we actually be able to fly the Highwind up and down as we're having this dogfight, or is it going to be one of our characters manning one of the guns on the side of the Highwind, having to shoot down enemy planes? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it. The other thing involving combat could be simply combat in the air like that happened in the original game. When we fight Diamond Weapon, we have to fight him in the air. Ultimate Weapon. When we fight Ultimate Weapon, we fight him from the deck of the Highwind. And I could see us having some other types of combat like this, including a mandatory battle with Ultimate Weapon in the Highwind. And that would be pretty insane. And now, whether our characters are going to be on the deck or whether it's going to be, once again, the Highwind fighting it and then it landing and then our characters having to finish it off, I don't know. But I could absolutely see the devs doing that. The next thing that we're going to talk about are the various transportation options outside of the Highwind, because we know there's going to be a lot of them. Of course, in the original, you could carry your chocobos from the Chocobo Ranch to the Gold Saucer to race them. And I'm sure that we're going to have a stable inside the Highwind so that we can ferry our chocobos to and fro. I also think we're going to be able to land and offload our birds and use our birds from there. Either that, or depending on the type of chocobo that we get, maybe we can even launch the chocobo from the Highwind while it is hovering above the treetops, or maybe even higher. The next thing that I think we can do is also involving transportation, but this is going to be a little different. This is going to be skydiving. And, you know, we did a little bit of skydiving in the original game too, but we really didn't have any control over it. But this time it'll be skydiving with a purpose. We're going to be able to control our characters a la PUBG Mobile style, where we dive from a high place and we go all the way down, deploying our parachutes at the very last second to have a soft landing. I don't think it's going to be like in the Battle Royale game, The First Soldier, where we just land, do a hero landing, which is just bad for your knees. Don't do it. And from there, who knows, we will be able to access certain locations, or maybe locations that simply can't be accessed by any other means. And I'm going to get into how we're going to find those locations here in a little bit. Snowboarding. We know for a fact that snowboarding is going to be in Part 3 because it has absolutely been teased in the Gold Saucer in Rebirth. And we're probably going to have a snowboarding segment when we get to the Icicle Inn. And then the snowboarding is going to open up as a minigame in the Gold Saucer. But what will happen beyond that? Would it be possible for us to jump directly off of the Highwind's deck, maybe if we're hovering low above a mountain, to get to a ski slope or something, or some location where we have to snowboard in order to get to it? And it won't just be the Northern Glacier. It's going to be other areas as well. It'll be our only way of accessing specific areas, maybe as a side quest, maybe as a main quest, but I could absolutely see them doing this as a side quest. So once again, that's snowboarding directly from the Highwind. Another mode of transportation we could get directly from the Highwind could be the submarine itself. The Highwind could double as a submarine carrier. Now, how exactly this would work, I don't know. I don't think the Highwind has enough storage capacity in its lower segment. I think that's mainly for crew and quarters. But there could be some kind of claw system that would be able to pick up the submarine that we eventually apprehend and move it over to the new locations. Now, how are we going to find those locations? With terrain scanning. This is something that was only dabbled with in Final Fantasy X. In 10, once again, we didn't have a traditional world map where we could fly the airship, but we did have a map where you could just spam the X button or the command button on the world map, and if you hit the button in just the right spot, you would actually locate a new location. Well, in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, we're actually going to have a terrain scanning feature where when we were flying above the world, we can scan areas where we couldn't normally land the Highwind, and maybe we will find some secrets. Maybe it'll be just a simple treasure that we just automatically pick up with a crane from the Highwind. Maybe it'll be a dungeon that we can get to. Maybe it'll be some treasure that we can unlock. Mysterious parts of the world that haven't been touched in ages. Who knows? But it will be a thing that we have to activate. How exactly it'll work, I don't know. Maybe it'll work while we're moving. Maybe we have to be stationary. I'd like for it to work while we're moving. Nevertheless, I would absolutely see that being a way that we discover new locations, whether it be just for side quests or for some main story elements as well, especially when we're hunting for the large materia or the huge materia. That's something I think I could absolutely see. The last thing that I think we're going to have involving the Highwind kind of comes along. It reminds me of Skies of Arcadia. I think that was on the Nintendo 64 or the GameCube. But in Skies of Arcadia, you can recruit people to be on your sort of island base. And I believe they could also crew your airship. And we've got all of these side characters who are kind of wandering the world and trying to complete their own objectives. What happens when they're done? What happens if on these side quests we help them? Does their story just end there? Or do they decide to join us in some manner and aid us from the Highwind, whether it be by giving us intel or by opening up a shop that if we give them raw materials, they can provide us special items and materia, or maybe something else, sort of like a new form of transmuting. I think that we could also get certain types of training missions, maybe with Chadley, even though let's try to minimize Chadley a little bit in Part 3, but I digress. We have people like Cisne, we've got people like Leslie, we've got several other people, Madame M, Andrea Rodea, the weaponsmith that we find in Gungaga. So many of these people who are a part of these side quests could join our team in an indirect way by becoming crew members of the Highwind. Well, that is it for my list of the possibilities that we could have for the Highwind in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. I hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more Final Fantasy content to come, including more theory crafting on Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 and other Final Fantasy videos as well. I hope you guys will like and subscribe, check out more on the FailroadExpress, and consider becoming a member. The funding that we get will really help us create new and better content. Thank you guys for watching. Check you guys next time.